There are two versions of my review of Big Hero 6. This is the spoiler-filled, in-depth discussion version. If you're just someone who wants to know whether or not this film is good and wants a really short review, click here to the spoiler-free short review. This video isn't going to have a rating, this isn't going to be a discussion of whether or not it's worth your money, this is more going to be discussing the artistic and technical aspects of the film, and not really have any set structure, and it's not going to really give a satisfactory answer. This is a video more intended for people who have already seen the movie, who want to know my thoughts on it. So if you don't want to be spoiled and are just wanting to know whether or not the film is good, please, by all means, click here. They gone? Okay. Again, this is going to be more off the cuff, more relaxed, not really a set structure, no title card, no music, just me effectively vlogging about what I thought about the film. Now, like I mentioned in the spoiler-free version, I was worried going in. I mean, at first I was kind of off-put by the fact that they did the whole San Francisco thing, but luckily the film didn't really make that big of a deal about it. It's kind of one of those cases that it's just a case of, this is the setting, and that's kind of where it begins and ends, which I kind of liked. I kind of like the fact that it didn't really try to call too much attention to the fact that it's based on a superhero team that's based in Japan in the Marvel Comics. And so really it was just kind of a case of, this is the basic setting, these are the basic characters, let's go. That said, I really liked kind of the overall design aesthetic of it. I mean, yeah, you can see that some points are like saying, hey, this is based on Tokyo to a certain degree, but like I mentioned, it doesn't really call too much attention to itself, and it does give it almost kind of a optimistic counterpoint of the Blade Runner city sort of thing. It's kind of almost a case of, say, if you were watching the film Her, and you saw that it looked like that China was kind of the major thing with like the multi-language stuff. It's kind of the same basic way. It just kind of feels like one of those cities that would emerge in the wake of some sort of thing where, say, China or Japan became the major superpower, and instead of everybody having to have a bunch of signs in English to accommodate foreigners, it's kind of now a case of that there have to be a bunch of signs in Japanese to accommodate foreigners. That's kind of more or less what it felt like with the overall design. And, well, with the animation, it's pretty much basic, well, not really basic, but it's just kind of the usual 3D animation that we saw in Frozen, which is kind of disappointing because I'm really hoping that we'll get a feature in the future that has the hybridized 2D, 3D technique that they debuted in Paperman. They even had a short before this called Feast that tried doing kind of the same technique, but the problem is that with that short, you can tell that they weren't actually animating on top of it. They were basically just rendering it out using cell shading, which I was kind of disappointed about, but at least was still a charming short. But with this film, it's just kind of the same old animation we've seen in films like Frozen, and to a lesser extent, Tangled. I haven't really seen Tangled, but it's kind of the case that you can tell that there's a little bit more polish in the movements and the character designs that at least give it that Disney look to it. I mean, Frozen had a little bit of it, but you can tell they've gotten better in between working on Frozen and working on Big Hero 6. Now, one thing that I was surprised they actually found a workaround for was the names of the characters, because as somebody who studied Japanese, the names bothered me a little bit. I'm not talking about like Honey Lemon, I guess, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and then you have like Wasabi no Ginger, Gogo Tamago, I'm just like, what? But they actually found a way to have it make sense. They basically say, oh, these are just nicknames given to us by Fred, who's not actually a student. And so it actually just kind of made it more believable. I'm just like, okay, well, now it makes sense. It's just a case of those are just nicknames. They're not the characters' actual names. And I haven't read any of the comics the film is based on. I haven't read any of the Big Hero 6 comics. And so that's one thing I actually liked, is that they kind of put enough attention to it to give it a reasonable explanation. Now, you're probably wondering why I kind of brought up the speed racer sort of thing. Well, it's because that you could tell in kind of the relationship that Hiro and Tadashi, I know, I say it in a weird way. It's because I've studied Japanese. It feels weird if I don't say it that way. And you can tell that it was even a problem that the voice actors had for the characters with their pronunciation of Hiro and Tadashi. But when it came to the relationship of Hiro and Tadashi, I kept kind of thinking, are they going to pull kind of a Racer X sort of thing? Is the villain going to end up being Tadashi at the end of the film? Thankfully, it wasn't the case, because I don't see how they could feasibly make that possible or really give any major motivation for Tadashi to be the villain. But I kind of like the relationship we got. It wasn't just a case of, oh, I'm the older brother who's going to disappear within a minute. They actually do give you insight into the kind of relationship that he and Hiro had, and just the kind of person that he was, which made it all the more painful when Tadashi dies, because you can then see the kind of impact that has on Hiro, and why it would kind of cause him to shut down, but then it also explains why he's so very much attached to Baymax, because Baymax is basically the last connection he has to his brother. Now, a lot of people talked about how in Japan, they didn't call this film Big Hero 6, they pretty much called the film Baymax, and I can kind of see why in this film, because yeah, they have kind of the team stuff going on, very much similar to The Incredibles, but at its heart, this is pretty much a story of Hiro Hamada grieving for his brother. I mean, yeah, a lot of people think, well, yeah, that's kind of simplifying it, but that's pretty much what it is. You even kind of go through some of the various phases, more or less. You have kind of... It's kind of hard to pinpoint which one would exactly be denial per se, but it's kind of the case you have him kind of saying, oh, I'm fine, when Baymax keeps kind of talking with him, and when you have the various friends of Tadashi kind of trying to help Hiro through it. Then you go straight to anger, where he literally orders Baymax to kill the villain. And again, this is spoiler-filled, so I already have a disclaimer. So yeah, when he basically orders Baymax, literally takes out the chip that makes Baymax a medical robot and turns it into a killer, you just see how dark it is, and you see how that coincides, because he sees that Dr. Callahan pretty much let his brother die, and so you can understand why he's reasonably pissed. He's just like, okay, you let my brother die because he went in to save you, you are going to get it. And you can just even see how the other characters react. They're just like, whoa, man, we are not doing this, we are not going to let you kill him. And that was one thing I really liked about it, and that's something you rarely see in a lot of the family movies, even by Disney standards. You rarely see a character pushed that far. But it's also just a case that it's very much understandable. He's in the anger phase of grief, which is pretty much then why he goes through kind of that breakdown when Baymax shows him the testing footage of Tadashi still building Baymax. It's just that it kind of just, you see this interesting emotional journey that Hiro goes through with this very lovable robot. And I just kind of like how you get kind of a bit of the payoff. To talk about that plot point I didn't like, the revelation that Dr. Callahan's daughter was still alive. I mean, I understand they were trying to kind of give some sort of reason for us to see some sort of heroic sacrifice of Baymax, to have Hiro say, I'm satisfied with my character, to bookend the whole thing, but that could have been executed in a much better way, and really it undermined Callahan's motivation. I mean, yeah, he thought his daughter was dead, but if they kept her dead, then it still would have at least had a lot of weight, because the main thing that bothered me is that after that whole thing happens where the portal closes up and Abigail was rescued, you still have Dr. Callahan kind of resisting arrest, but not even in the sense that he wants to go over and see his daughter, but just more in the typical sense of, oh, it's like, I'm in it, it's like, I did nothing wrong sort of thing, which just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you wanted to have him do that, then you should have kept Abigail dead, or at the very least show some sort of payoff with that sort of thing if you wanted to make it a more tragic villain. Now, if you wanted to keep the villain very much villainous, but still have Baymax kind of sacrifice himself, maybe instead of saying, oh, Abigail's alive, we have to go in, you could probably just have it be a case of, oh, a crucial piece of the portal machinery went inside the portal that's still keeping it running, that's going to cause this problem, somebody has to go in and fix it, and so then you would have Hiro and Baymax go into the portal trying to fix it, and after Hiro fixes it, you then have him trying to get out, thus having all the shrapnel damaging Baymax, and that would have made it a little bit more powerful with Hiro going in trying to fix stuff, then on his way back out, Baymax has to throw him out in order to save him at the last minute. You could even have it without the whole, like, I'm satisfied with my character thing. You could even have it be a very quick, very abrupt sort of thing to make it more painful, if that's what you're trying to go for. But that was the one plot thing that bothered me about the film. Like I said, I did get caught up in the emotion while watching it, but when I actually took the time to think about it, it bothered me. I mean, I do like how they had the whole misdirect where they make you think it's the evil CEO guy is the villain, but then it's revealed to be Dr. Callahan. But, I don't know, it's just right there, that was where it kind of lost me a little bit. I mean, afterward, when he finds the chip, which, by the way, I'm just like, okay, how did he get that chip out and load it into his fist without Hiro having seen it? I mean, yeah, he was probably looking ahead, guiding the rocket, but even then, I don't know. Again, dramatic convenience, I'm willing to forgive it because it was still a sweet scene when he reopened him up and saw that he was still functioning. But really, I don't know. I'm willing to forgive it just because of just how well written, and at least it was a nice book-ended sort of thing where you at least have him reunite with Baymax and you have him kind of doing the whole college thing. It at least was a nice, happy ending. I just wish they handled that whole last-minute sacrifice thing a little bit better. So yeah, story-wise, I liked the characters, I liked how everything played out, I liked just how well developed the characters were, and just how real they all felt. And I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but it's kind of nice to see a superhero movie that isn't trying to start some sort of big cinematic universe. And yeah, that's kind of a knock at DC, but I'm even getting sick of the Marvel movies in that regard. Because watching these Marvel movies and constantly seeing them refer and put all these Easter eggs and all these connections, I'm just like, come on, people. Just tell a straightforward story. Don't try to hype up the next major film. What happened to being self-contained? And so really it was actually kind of refreshing watching this of saying, oh, this is based on a comic property, but they're obviously not trying to tie it to anything else. They're keeping it self-contained. And that's a problem that I've been having with the Marvel movies as of late because they're so focused on trying to hype up the next major Avengers film. So that's one thing I really like about it. It's a nice, well-executed superhero, but also a good, just family movie overall that is just nice, self-contained, and is just out to tell a good story. It's not trying to start a cinematic universe, not out to expand a cinematic universe. It's just, it gives a, hey, we're taking this property, here's what we're doing with it. And that's what I really, really liked about it. To be honest, I actually hope that Disney decides to take some of the other fringe Disney Marvel properties and give it the same sort of treatment they gave Big Hero 6. Personally, a film that Disney really should do as an animated film that should be in a similar vein to Big Hero 6 would be Power Pack. Because Power Pack has the same basic premise, but instead of it being a group of nerds who manage to make their own super suits, these are just 4 kids who are given superpowers by an alien. Can you not see that as a Disney movie? Just anybody who's read Power Pack, can you not see that? Would you not want to see a Disney animation produced adaptation of Power Pack? I would. Especially if they can leave the whole Future Foundation thing out of it, because that's just complicated. So yeah, that's just my spiel about Big Hero 6. And yeah, let me know what you think about this format of having kind of the formal, very short review, and then the informal discussion review here. And have you seen Big Hero 6? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments, and hopefully we'll get a good dialogue going. But in the meantime, this is Romney signing out.